Welcome to NTD Good Morning.
Here are today's top stories. Iran is expanding its strikes in the Middle East. Qatar says the largest U.S. airbase in the region has been struck. U.S. military, meanwhile, saying Operation Epic Fury is ahead of the game plan.
Lawmakers last night emerging from a closed-door briefing on Iran with mixed feelings. Democrats pushing to restrict Trump's military authority, a move House Speaker Mike Johnson says would play into the enemy's hands.
We take a look at the impact of the war in Iran on China and India with expert analysis.
Midterm primaries kicked off yesterday, producing a pair of upsets with prominent members of Congress projected to lose their seats. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Today's Wednesday, March 4th. We're continuing with our coverage of Operation Epic Fury, the joint U.S.-Israel operation in Iran that's now entering day 5. And Iran is targeting more U.S. assets across the Middle East.
Qatar's defense ministry says an Iranian missile hit the Al Udeid U.S. airbase. There are no casualties reported.
Al Udeid is the largest U.S. military base in the region. Qatar saying this morning one missile reached the base and another was intercepted.
Saudi Arabian state media reports that the country intercepted and destroyed 9 drones that entered its airspace today. And Fox News has confirmed an Iranian drone struck the CIA station in Riyadh earlier this week. This was part of a drone attack targeting the U.S. Embassy compound.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio also confirming an Iranian drone hit the U.S. consulate in Dubai. Rubio says all personnel are accounted for.
There are also reports that Iran and its proxies struck a U.S. consulate in northern Iraq. Iran-linked terror groups in the region are taking credit for attacks in Iraq's semi-autonomous Kurdish region.
The Department of War has identified 4 of the 6 American soldiers who died during Operation Epic Fury. The Pentagon yesterday announcing the deaths of Army Reserve Captain Cody Cork, Sergeant First Class Noah Tegens, Sergeant First Class Nicole Amore, and Sergeant Declan Cody. In a statement, the department said they were killed Sunday in Kuwait. The incident under investigation.
The U.S. Army Reserve expressed its condolences to the families. Major General Todd Erskine, commanding general for the 79th Theater Sustainment Command, saying our nation is kept safe by folks like these. The 2 other soldiers who were killed have not yet been identified.
Our sincere gratitude for their service and our thoughts and prayers certainly with their family and friends at this time of need. President Trump saying most of Iran's military installations have been knocked out.
And new strikes are targeting Iranian leadership. Washington correspondent Mari Otsu has the details from the White House.
President Trump is saying that the U.S. is, quote, decimating the Iranian leadership. He's saying that the U.S. also has a, quote, virtually unlimited supply of high-end munitions stored in countries around the world. And that's as he says that today's strikes are focused on taking out the Iranian leadership, with Secretary of State Marco Rubio doubling down on his warning that the hardest hits are yet to come. Take a look.
We're going to unleash Chang on these people in the next few hours and days. You're going to really begin to perceive a change in the scope and in the intensity of these attacks as, frankly, the 2 most powerful air forces in the world take apart this terroristic regime.
They have no Navy, it's been knocked out. They have no Air Force, it's been knocked out. They have no air detection, that's been knocked out. Their radar has been knocked out. And just about everything's been knocked out.
Vowing military escalation, President Trump says the Iranian regime had been about to attack Israel and its neighbors, and Operation Epic Fury preempted that action.
You see, we were having negotiations with these lunatics, and it was my opinion that they were going to attack first. They were going to attack. If we didn't do it, they were going to attack first. I felt strongly about that. And
meanwhile, President Trump condemning what he calls the radicals in the Democratic Party for, quote, complaining bitterly about the U.S. strikes in Iran.
History teaches us a simple lesson. Wars without a clear objective do not stay small. They get bigger, they get bloodier, they get longer, they get more expensive. This is not a defensive war. This is not a necessary war. This is a war of choice.
The bottom line is this. The president determined we were not going to get hit first. It's that simple, guys. We are not going to put Americans' troops in harm's way.
Guys like Schumer would say, well, you should have done this. In other words, if I did it, it's no good. If I didn't do it, they would have said the opposite, that you should have done this.
But President Trump also says there's nothing surprising about this, as it's the same lawmakers who wouldn't stand for guests at his State of the Union address. The president mentioning the mother of 23-year-old Irina Zarutska, the Ukrainian refugee who was fatally stabbed last August.
But most people feel, I'll tell you what, I have never had more compliments on something I did. People felt it's something that had to be done.
As I said, in Germany the last 2 days, we are supporting the United States and Israel to get rid of this terrible terrorist regime.
President Trump praising Germany for letting U.S. forces land in its bases, while criticizing the U.K. and Spain for doing the opposite. That's as he's ordering the U.S. government to offer insurance to protect ships carrying oil through the Persian Gulf, so companies aren't scared off by attack risks. The president says the U.S. will ensure the free flow of energy to the world, even if that means the U.S. Navy escorting tankers through the Strait of Hormuz.
So if we have a little high oil prices for a little while, but as soon as this ends, those prices are going to drop, I believe, lower than even before.
Meanwhile, President Trump is threatening to cut off all trade with Spain over the fact that the NATO and European ally is refusing to let the U.S. military use its bases for Operation Epic Fury. Back to you.
And thanks to Mari for that report. Joining us now is David Wurmser. He's an analyst for Middle East Affairs with the Center for Security Policy. Thanks for joining this morning, David. What developments are you observing since we last spoke?
Well, first of all, I think one of the things the president has said was correct. Essentially, we are beginning to remove the ability of Iran to shoot at us with things that shoot at us. Brad Cooper, our CENTCOM head, said that as well last night. So although we are still seeing a significant number of missiles, the amount of missiles is declining a lot. And I would expect in the next day or two to go down dramatically even further. And one of the reasons for that is that we have now complete superiority in the air over Iran, which means every time they shoot a missile, the launcher that shot it gets destroyed almost immediately. The second area that we're seeing is in the northwest, and that is where more the Israelis are operating. There's a lot of activity to destroy the regime's control of that area, which is critical because Azerbaijan is to the north, Iraq is to the west, and both have militias that are going to try to get weapons and armed insurgents into Iran to begin to help create an armed insurgency against the Iranian regime at the same time that the Iranian regime's assets are being obliterated. So we're beginning to see the beginning of the territorial collapse of the regime in certain areas that will, according to the plan, spread to the core and bring down the regime. So that's really what's happened in the last, I'd say, 12 to 24 hours. That's a significant shift in phase.
Yeah, I want to go deeper on two of the things you just shared, the people that might be going in on the ground, but also the capacity to continue to fire missiles. So let's start with that one, David. Obviously, at minimum, you need two things. You need missile stockpiles, and then you need people and or launching capacity. We hear conflicting reports that, Iran might have just tons of stockpiles, whether or not they continue to have the ability to continue to fire them, as you say, because the launchers are getting taken out almost within the first time they're being used. How much longer would you predict they have the ability to continue to fire projectiles from their space?
Well, I mean, they probably will have the ability to shoot some sort of projectile from their space all the way until they collapse. But the question is whether it'll be 40, 50 a day or whether it'll be one a day. Remember, it's not only that then less targets get hit, it's that the air defenses have less to worry about and they can focus more. But part of the problems with these missiles is they're coming in numbers that overwhelm slightly air defense. And that leaves, that means, if you have 90% probability of shooting it down, 10 missiles are shot, one will get through. If one missile is shot, it almost certainly will not get through. So it's a probability thing. So there will be an ability as long as the regime continues to shoot missiles. But we're going to talk about a trickle rather than what we see now, which is very painful, both strategically because oil structures are being hit, and militarily to some extent because radar installations and airfields are being hit. So it's important, but I would expect that level to drop within the next 2 to 3 days. I would say even more than materially, I would say dramatically.
Well, that's certainly potentially good news. And then I would like you to go a little bit deeper on these militias that you say might mobilize on the ground against Iranian regime leadership and military capability.
It's very clear that right after the war ended in the summer, after the Israelis struck Iran for 11 days and then the United States joined in to eliminate Fordo and severely damage Isfahan nuclear structures, the Israelis sat down and started thinking how to penetrate the Iranian structures, the population, so forth. And clearly one of the easiest ways up front was there are very sympathetic Kurdish forces and some Turkic forces, Azeri forces. So right off the bat, you could see that beginning to emerge as a structure through which you could begin to penetrate Iran with weaponry. And the weaponry then goes to more the core. I would imagine that the CIA and Israel together have been working really aggressively over the last several months to develop a vast structure to take a lot of these street demonstrators and street demonstrations and begin to organize them into something much more coherent under a leadership that we don't see, but certainly has emerged within Iran. And I would imagine those are, many of them may have had military training, being in the military and so forth. And that's the second thing, is once such an insurgency begins, the hope is that there will be army units, not IRGC structures, but army units that will decide, I'm going to stand with the people against the government. So you start getting heavy weaponry that way. So I think that's the strategy, at the same time that especially the Israelis in Western Iran, which is where the core population structure is of this, are down to the level of local police stations taking out the regime.
Yeah, I think what you've just described is the thing that everybody's looking toward. What might be that tipping point that would enable regime change, something that we'll be watching very closely and hope to be speaking with you more on this topic. David Wormser, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
U.S. forces hitting nearly 2,000 military targets in Iran. And Israel reportedly striking a site in Iran where leaders were selecting a successor to Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley has the details on that.
President Trump from the Oval Office revealing new details about Israel's latest strike inside Iran. The president mentioning reports of Israeli forces hitting a compound connected to the group responsible for selecting a successor to Iran's supreme leader.
And as you know, 49 people were taken out in the first hit, and I guess there was another hit today on the new leadership, and it looks like that was pretty substantial also.
Meanwhile, the Israel Defense Forces says that it's striking missile infrastructure in central Iran, including ballistic missile launchers and storage facilities. Israel also expanding operations beyond Iran, targeting the Iranian-backed terror group Hezbollah in Lebanon, just after joining the fight against the U.S. and Israeli forces.
Hezbollah made a very big mistake when it attacked us.
But Iran is also striking back. 2 Iranian drones hit the U.S. Embassy compound in Saudi Arabia. No injuries were reported, though, as officials say the building was empty at the time. The U.S. has since closed its embassies in Saudi Arabia and Kuwait.
About Dubai's consulate, the last update I had with seconds before getting before these cameras was that a drone unfortunately struck a parking lot adjacent to the Chancellery building and then set off a fire in that place. All personnel are accounted for.
The State Department issuing departure orders for personnel at 14 embassies across the region, urging Americans to leave by any means available. The U.S. is now preparing military charter flights for citizens seeking to exit the Middle East.
9,000 Americans have been able to leave the region since the start of this war. We have about 1,500 Americans that are requesting assistance with departure.
Meanwhile, Israel reopening its airspace to allow citizens stranded abroad to return home. Across the Gulf, countries including the UAE, Bahrain, and Qatar, and even Lebanon facing waves of ballistic missiles and drone strikes targeting hotels, airports, and residential areas, all being struck by Iran. And there are growing reports that several Gulf nations may be preparing coordinated counterstrikes against Iran. President Trump has spent the past year strengthening ties with these Gulf leaders, relationships that could now solidify further as many see a shared threat from Iran. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Jack Bradley, NTD News.
Thank you, Jack. And President Trump is sharing his thoughts on who the next leader of Iran should be.
Trump responding yesterday to a question about whether the exiled son of the late Shah, Reza Pahlavi, could be a possible leader.
I guess he is. Some people like him, and we haven't been thinking about too much about that. It would seem to me that somebody from within maybe would be more appropriate. I've said that. He looks like a very nice person, but it would seem to me that somebody that's there, that's currently popular, if there's such a person. But we have people like that. We have people that were more moderate. You know, these were radical lunatics, and you know what they get? They get nothing. All they do is kill people.
Pahlavi recently said he would want to lead Iran in a transition to democracy if the current regime collapses. Pahlavi's father was the last Shah of Iran before the 1979 revolution. He left the country in 1979 amid increasing political tensions. His exit came as Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini returned from exile.
Khomeini became the country's leader when revolutionaries overtook the U.S. Embassy in Tehran and held dozens of Americans hostage for more than a year. Trump's comments came 4 days into a U.S.-Israel aerial operation that, of course, has targeted Iran's military leadership and the nuclear program. And right now we are looking at a live feed of the Pentagon, and to give us a unique perspective on the Iran war, we'll be joined by a French-Israeli documentary filmmaker in just a minute. Stay with us.
This is such a gentle painting, so beautifully portrayed.
A group of people reading together in this simple, everyday-looking living room. A young girl reading along with an adult, a grandparent sitting in the lotus position, a businessman in his typical suit.
You see all those people, they look like they have quietly settled down there. And you, as a viewer, it looks like you've just stepped in the door.
You can't see what it is they're reading, so you're a little bit curious and you're kind of invited to walk in.
This harmonious feeling is not by accident. It is the very subject of the work. The book they are reading is the main text of Falun Gong, which is an ancient Chinese spiritual discipline in the Buddhist tradition. At the core of Falun Gong are the values of truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. Unfortunately, the practice is banned in China, where the artist resides. Thousands have been killed for their faith. Golden energy blooms into the room as a result of their steadfast faith. The painting on the back wall reminds us of this work's title, Plum Blossoms in a Muddy World.
It's also a metaphor for the practitioners that are sitting in the room as plum blossoms.
They signify perseverance and hope that all brutal winters end and life is renewed once again.
It's a magical painting.
We said we'd never break the 3-second rule. We'd never make a separate dinner. And never do that. We'd never let them sleep in our room. And never become a minivan mom.
Hey, Chris.
Okay, well, I'm not at my desk right now. As parents, we say never a lot, but never happens. So when you say you'd never leave your child in a hot car, know it can happen. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock.
Welcome back. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and Chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff General Dan Caine will address the media this morning with an update on operations in Iran.
We'll bring you that event live from the Pentagon here on NTD.
Meanwhile, American and Israeli forces say they're striking Iranian targets nonstop.
The U.S. military in the region providing an update to Operation Epic Fury. Here's that story.
The U.S. military says it has hit nearly 2,000 targets so far as part of Operation Epic Fury. The head of Central Command, Admiral Brad Cooper, says the U.S. is ahead of the game plan.
We have severely degraded Iran's air defenses and destroyed hundreds of Iran's ballistic missiles, launchers, and drones. And in simple terms, we're focused on shooting all the things that can shoot at us.
Admiral Cooper also says the U.S. is going after Iran's Navy.
We are also sinking the Iranian Navy, the entire Navy. Thus far, we've destroyed 17 Iranian ships, including the most operational Iranian submarine that now has a hole in its side. For decades, the Iranian regime has harassed international shipping. Today, there's not a single Iranian ship underway in the Arabian Gulf, Strait of Hormuz, or Gulf of Oman.
According to Cooper, Operation Epic Fury has involved several big moments for the U.S. military, including using long-range precision strike missiles for the first time and launching one-way drones which were originally based on an Iranian design. Cooper says there are more U.S. assets in the region than there have been in decades.
More than 50,000 troops, 200 fighters, 2 aircraft carriers, and bombers from the United States are participating in this operation, and more capability is on the way. These forces bring a massive amount of firepower, representing the largest buildup by the U.S. in the Middle East in a generation.
The White House is also providing updates on Operation Epic Fury, saying U.S. forces are hitting Iran surgically, overwhelmingly, and unapologetically. In a post on X, the White House said Iran continues to strike against military and civilian locations indiscriminately across the region. Meanwhile, the Israeli military says one of its F-35 stealth fighters shot down a piloted Iranian Air Force plane over Tehran today. Israel's ambassador to the U.S. gives updates about the joint U.S. and Israeli operation.
Today in Tehran, we took out the 4th of the 4 command centers, 3 we took out yesterday, creating chaos within the ranks of the Ayatollah regime. This creates a chink in the chain of command where they're not able to send messages down the system onto the field.
He said Israeli and U.S. forces also eliminated a covert underground nuclear compound.
And French President Emmanuel Macron has ordered that country's nuclear-powered aircraft carrier to sail to the eastern Mediterranean.
It's going to be accompanied by its air assets and an escort of warships. Macron said yesterday the carrier will defend French assets in the Middle East as Iran fires indiscriminately in the region.
Macron said 2 French bases have already been hit in a limited manner.
French president says there are 400,000 French nationals either living or traveling in the Middle East. Efforts to bring them back to France are currently underway. And joining us now is Pierre Rehov. He's a French-Israeli documentary filmmaker to offer us some analysis on the war. Pierre, it's now, of course, been 5 days of the joint operation of Roaring Lion and Epic Fury. What's your perspective of the war from your vantage point in Israel?
Well, first of all, very happy to be talking to you today. I almost didn't because we had an alert only 10 minutes ago and we had to rush to the shelter of the house. And if I'd stayed in the shelter, it would have been a miss of this important appointment I had with you. So to answer your question, I've been living in Israel for 14 years now. Sorry. And It's been like the fifth war I've been witnessing. This one, it's kind of weird because compared to what we've been going through last year in June, it's a little bit milder, believe it or not. I mean, first of all, the Iranians don't have as many missiles that they had in the past, and also the fact that the US are participating at a very high level to the strikes reduces dramatically the power of the Iranian regime to target our civilians and actually to target other civilians around the Middle East, including Arab countries, as you know. So it's been kind of a little bit challenging, but at the same time, the whole country is very excited about what's going on because after so many years of being under Iranian threat, it looks like there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, it really is incredible. Your whole country is going through this together, and you describe having, on a moment's notice, go down to your bomb shelter and being optimistic, something that, you know, here in the U.S., it's really hard to relate to. And I know that as a boy, your family fled Algeria under the threat of not, you know, slogans anti-Semitism, but deadly anti-Semitism. And you've dedicated your life's work to making films to expose the frequent propaganda wars that are waged against Jews. Right now in the American media, some are highly critical of the U.S. decision to go after Iran's nuclear and ballistic missiles program. So how do you view that, being that you look so closely at the media and how it's used sort of in these info wars?
First of all, I believe that a lot of the media have been corrupted by Iran and by Muslim Brotherhood. So it's not a spontaneous movement against the Jews and against Israel. It's finance. You have people over there who are corrupted, who have received a lot of money. You have a lot of organizations within America right now that are spreading fake news. And thanks to the social networks, those fake news have a lot of power, but they didn't have in the past. I don't believe that Americans as a society, and I've been living there for quite some time. I was living in Los Angeles in the 80s. I was living in New York between 2008 and 2012. And I didn't feel when I was living there the same level of anti-Semitism that I felt when I was a kid in Algeria, thanks to the Arabs. And in France, during my whole life, except for when I was in America and Israel, again, thanks to the Arabs. So there is a systemic anti-Semitism with it Islam, with it Muslims in general, related to their own history, the whole building of their religion, which happened against the Jews to start with, and until they actually, like some countries are doing today, you know, Morocco became an ally of Israel. You have the Abraham Accords, including Morocco and Emirates and Bahrain and other countries. And those countries moving ahead and towards modernity kind of go away from the traditional rhetoric of anti-Semitism, anti-Western. It's always connected, you know. You had the Jews, you had the West. In the West, you had the Jews, you had capitalists when you are communist, and you had the Jews because they are communists when you are capitalist. So there's always this little people, we are only 15 million people around the world, that are the easy target because, you know, we are very exposed all the time. So that's my overall feeling is that for all the Jews at this very moment, Israel is the place to be safe, believe it or not.
Yeah, it's so interesting what you bring up, that there are only 15 million Jews, of course, surrounded by over 1 billion Muslim Arabs. And you rightfully point out that there is this turning point, potentially starting with the Abraham Accords and now to the Board of Peace, where you really have the Arab and Muslim world sort of coming together on the side of Israel and now supporting in one level or another this resistance to Iran. Did you ever think that you would see that in your lifetime? Arab versus Arab? Or, you know, Muslim versus Muslim as opposed to against Jews?
Yes. Actually, yes. I saw that in 2016, where President Trump was elected for the first time, and I knew he was going to do the right thing about it because I've been following his career for quite a long time. And I know also he was elected in 2020, but that's another subject. And when he was re-elected for the second time officially, last year, 2024, I knew that something big was going to happen because the situation couldn't continue like that. Europeans try to manage a conflict in the usual way, which is very cowardice. I mean, those people don't have a backbone. And I'm talking about the European leaders in general. And I have to say, you know, in America, when you had Joe Biden and Barack Obama and Bill Clinton, actually Clinton was a little bit better than the other two, nothing was going to move again in the right direction because there's always this, you know, lack of will of actually solving the conflict. It's better to manage a conflict than to solve it. Now you have in America, thankfully, a president who has the capacity, the strength, the courage to really apply what has had to be done for a long time, not only to protect Israel, not only to save the Jews, but to save the entire Western world for something which is purely evil, whether it's a connection between the Communist Party in China, Russian Putin, or Iran, or all the things that the real axis of evil are really now being attacked with the purpose of being defeated. So yes, I knew it was going to happen, and now the hope is at a level like I've never had in my life before.
Well, so interesting to see the dancing on the streets in between trips to the bomb shelters. What a moment in history. Pierre Rahove, thank you for breaking it down for us.
My pleasure.
Yeah, great insights, and that footage says it all.
Absolutely.
Can't see enough of it. All right.
We'll soon Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Caine, will be addressing the media with an update on the operations in Iran.
But first, we'll take a look at the impact of the war in Iran on China and India with expert commentary after this.
When I arrived in the U.S. at 19, I struggled to find job opportunities without a high school diploma. My name is Ariel, and my entire life changed when I took a chance and I got my high school diploma at age 22. Everything I have, my education, my career, my marriage, I owe to the Adult Literacy Center and my teachers. They were with me every step of the way, helping with my English and math, making sure I pushed through all the challenges. Oh my goodness.
So Ariel, we made this yearbook for you. It has notes from all the people that are here. Your achievement has set an example for so many students. Most importantly, your daughter.
Education was the key that unlocked all my opportunities.
When you graduate, they graduate. Visit finishyourdiploma.org to find free and supportive adult education centers near you.
I don't remember how it started. Our back and forth. Victory. Fumble. Repeat. It always came back.
Okay, here we go, throw it! Yeah.
You probably don't remember what you told me,
That was perfect.
but I heard every word.
Nice.
Being a cowboy, I don't know anything different from when I was 3 or 4 years old. I did tough things. I thought everybody needed to do tough things, and if you didn't, I didn't have time for it. I had a very successful career at a very young age, and life was fast. I was preparing physically. I wasn't doing anything mentally on the inside. And then I got hurt. I wanted to be better as a person, and I really dug into mental health. I start my day with 20-minute workouts. I live life 8 seconds at a time. Horses are so therapeutic. They know what you're feeling. When you're nervous, they're nervous. He won't say it back, but we're pals. I take a lot of responsibility in taking care of my kids, my family, and being there for them. You're gonna have tough days. Everybody does. Find a place to stop and just breathe. Love your mind.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio briefing lawmakers in a closed-door hearing yesterday. Senators and House members coming out of the meeting with reactions largely along party lines, with some Democrats breaking ranks. NTD's Melina Weiskup is here with us now. Melina, good to see you. What are their reactions?
Hi, good morning, Steph. So the goal with this closed-door briefing was ultimately to reassure lawmakers of the administration's objectives with the initial strikes on Iran. Administration officials have repeatedly said that the goal was aimed at wiping out Tehran's missiles and other military capabilities. While Republicans largely reiterated support for the administration's operation last night, many Democrats left that closed-door briefing with complaints, mainly about what they called a lack of planning and a lack of congressional approval. Here's both sides.
The mission is very simple. It's twofold. We take out their ability to launch ballistic missiles and to produce ballistic missiles, and we downgrade their Navy. That's it. That's what we're doing. It's short in scope. It does not violate the law in any way.
And everybody knows there is not prosperity or peace in the Middle East if Iran has a nuclear weapon.
I am truly worried about mission creep. When there's no set plan, when you can't hear day after day, we're going to do this, 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 and this, and these are the reasons why. You end up with an endless war, you end up with mission creep, you end up with all kinds of problems.
Now, to be clear, Steph, the administration has insisted that they do have clear objectives and strategies with Operation Epic Fury. But at a Pentagon briefing earlier this week, officials said they couldn't lay out the specifics of the timeline involved here or the strategies that they're going to employ to the American people to avoid tipping off the enemy. Now there's this big debate coming to a head in Congress once again over the War Powers Act. Democrats in the Senate are forcing a vote later today on whether to block President Trump from using further military force against Iran, a move that House Speaker Mike Johnson has called dangerous.
The idea that a few colleagues here would try to move a war powers motion and resolution to the floor right now is dangerous. Imagine a scenario where Congress would vote to tell the commander-in-chief that he was no longer allowed to complete this mission. That would be a very dangerous thing. You see that Iran is firing almost seemingly indiscriminately at targets. They're trying to intimidate America. They're trying to test our resolve. And the idea that there's some members of this legislative body that would play along with that plays right into the hands of the enemy. And I think it's shameful.
The War Powers vote will happen in the Senate today, but House Speaker Mike Johnson is also facing the possibility of a War Powers vote being forced in the House. He insisted that Operation Epic Fury is not an official war, therefore Congress doesn't need to approve it. Now, Iran, of course, has retaliated by striking several nearby countries, and Senator Lindsey Graham says what stands out to him is the fact that countries in the Middle East are now going to be more involved in the fight for stability in the region. Here's Graham.
The countries now are more intent than ever to end the threat forever. So what I see in the coming days is more capability directed at the regime that's non-American, more planes flying that are non-Americans, more missile capability brought to the fight by our allies. So the ability to inflict harm on the regime is going to increase, not just because we're more committed to ending this, because we're going to have more partners to do that. Now,
and while most Democrats are questioning the administration's actions here, a few Democrats, including Congressman Greg Landsman of Ohio and Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania, say the strikes were justified. Listen to Fetterman.
But it's like, yes, I'm the only Democrat because I'm not afraid of my base to just say, you know what, this was overall a good thing. You don't have to agree on everything. So I'm going to be honest. So, like, why can't you just acknowledge that one of the most evil people on the face of the earth was erased? That's a good thing.
Remember, administration officials have repeatedly said the goal was not regime change here, but the president and his administration is now encouraging the people of Iran to seize the day to establish a new government. Steph?
All right, thanks for the update. NTD Congressional correspondent Melina Weisskopf.
It does seem like, regardless of what Trump will do, there will be some people that will oppose it. But it does, as Graham had suggested, and as David Wormser said in our previous conversation, that it's not the U.S. and Israel alone now, that there's a broader coalition that is starting to form.
It does seem to be growing.
Yeah. And staying with Capitol Hill, lawmakers there debating the attack on the Iranian regime, hearing testimony from the Undersecretary of War. NTD's Chris Bobb has more on that.
Inside the Senate Armed Service Committee, hearing a sharp partisan clash unfolding over presidential war powers.
We had a diplomatic agreement with Iran on nuclear proliferation, and President Trump withdrew, and he was basically playing politics.
It was a horrible deal. It was a disastrous deal. It would originally allow Iran to be able to have enrichment to the grade that they could make a nuclear weapon. I don't remember him saying anything in 2016 when Barack Obama at the time dropped 26,000 bombs in Syria. And what threat did Syria have to the United States? Does anybody doubt that Iran, if or when they got a nuclear weapon, would deliver it to the United States? They've killed thousands of Americans from the first time they took hostages in November of 1979 to the last time they attacked us in June of 2025. And you want to say he's playing politics? You guys are playing politics. You guys are the ones that are grandstanding.
Undersecretary of Defense for Policy Elbridge Colby defending the operation amid questions from committee Democrats.
Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu launched illegal strikes against Iran. This war for regime change is both unconstitutional and dangerous.
Now, there were no missiles being loaded on launchers. There was not a nuclear bomb being rolled out.
So they've been killing Americans for 47 years. This is objectively a historic opportunity. This isn't an example of nation building and this kind of interventionism, because it is looking to the Iranian people to take the initiative.
Senators Tim Kaine, Chuck Schumer, and Adam Schiff announcing that the Senate will vote on Wednesday on a war powers resolution aimed at Iran. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Chris Bobb, NTD News.
And joining us now to dissect the Iran war's impact on India is Kriti Upadhyaya, a foreign policy and defense analyst and Heritage Foundation visiting fellow. Good to have you with us today, Kriti. India imports more than 85% of its domestic oil needs, and around half of its crude oil imports currently transit through the Strait of Hormuz. So let's start with how the Strait's closure is currently impacting India.
Well, good morning, Stefania. Thanks for having me. Well, I think that, oil prices all over are being affected right now. About 30-40% of the global shipping goes through the Strait of Hormuz, and a significant amount of oil goes through there. And then we also have Iraq, where about 1.5 million barrels of oil is produced on a daily basis. So I think oil prices are being affected all over, but I think what's also important is that while Lloyd's, the major insurer for maritime, has pulled out just yesterday, something that really sort of invigorated the markets was that President Trump has said that the DFC, the U.S. political risk underwriter, is going to come forward and help underwrite some of these insurance. So I think that definitely signals positivity to the markets, but I think at least in the short to medium term, oil prices are definitely going to be affected.
And India currently has formal diplomatic relations with Iran. They're fairly close to each other. India has historically not cut off relations, say with Iran just because there's a dictatorship. How do you see potentially that relationship in regards to the U.S. wanting to isolate Iran and just the dynamics at play right now?
Well, India has always tried to sort of have this non-aligned stance in sort of these tricky situations. And what we're seeing right now is that while India has called all the partners in the Gulf and so on and has been in touch with the U.S., it hasn't necessarily come out and said that it's made a statement about what's going on in Iran. So it's not sympathized with the Ayatollah or the Iranians in a way that, say, Pakistan or some of the other countries have done. So I think that's a positive. Secondly, although There are no confirmed reports. The U.S. and India do have LIMOA, which is this logistics exchange memorandum, which basically says that, in certain operations, the U.S. can use Indian bases for refueling and maintenance and so on. Again, we don't have any confirmed reports, but there's a lot of chatter online that that's something that's already happening. Secondly, just when I woke up this morning, a few hours back, I heard that, in Indo-PACOM, we've had some amount of activity. Basically, there was this Dana, this Iranian ship that was coming out after the International Fleet Review off of the coast of Visakhapatnam in India, and that was taken down, presumably by a U.S. submarine. Now, all of this is happening quite close to the coast in India, in Indo-PACOM. So that's another thing that sort of signals that even though overtly India necessarily isn't saying or doing anything, it's at least allowing the U.S. as a friend to use some of those areas. But having said that, just finally on your point on oil, whenever there have been sanctions, say on Venezuela, on Iran, on Russia, India, while it maintains its own energy independence, has tried to lower its imports from Iran. So even when we look at, from those countries, so even when we look at Iran, while for Iran, those exports are huge, for India, they're pretty much negligible, right? Like less than 1% or so on.
Okay. Now, Khamenei's envoy to New Delhi claims that the U.S. conflict with Iran aims to block the rise of India and China. How do you see it?
Well, I've been seeing these arguments floating around that, the main thing is really China. I'm seeing this even from the U.S. quarters. I think some of these are extensions, right? I think the Indo-PACOM is the Indo-PACOM area of responsibility, and then we have the CENTCOM. So I wouldn't mix those two. And I definitely don't agree with the fact that any of this has to do with weakening India. I think U.S. and India ties have been on an upward trajectory for the past 2 decades now, and I see that continuing. Even recently we've had some sort of issues on the trade front, which again I think is completely normal for mature democracies, mature relationships to have some disagreements every now and then. What matters is how we emerge from them, how we navigate them, and I think U.S. and India have done a great job of navigating even some of these disagreements. Mm-hmm. And just for our viewers, U.S.-India defense ties have actually been the sort of star of this relationship. Today, India conducts most of its bilateral and multilateral exercises with the U.S. Defense trade is a solid over $25 billion pipeline. Most of India's maritime suite, major platforms, the P-8Is, the Apaches, the transport aircraft, the C-17s, and I could go on, right? The sensors, the sonar buoys, they're all American. So I think as far as U.S. and India are concerned, we're going solid.
Well, great to hear your sense of what's going on there, and I know that you're deep in research on this. So thank you so much, Kriti Upadhyaya.
Thanks for having me. Have a great day.
And you.
And we're looking now at a live feed of the Pentagon. We're expecting Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Dan Caine. They should be addressing the media momentarily. We'll bring you that live as soon as it's available.
But first, midterm primaries kicked off today, producing a pair of upsets with prominent members of Congress projected to lose their seats. That and more.
Hi, I'm Susan Lucci. You may know me from my many years on television. I never thought about heart disease until I had my own heart event. I felt this slight pressure on my chest, just slight. I thought, oh, it's nothing, it'll go away. I didn't get it. I did not get it. But a few days later, while shopping at a boutique, that pressure returned, much stronger. It felt like an elephant pressing on my chest. I had a 90% blockage in my main artery and a 75% blockage in the adjacent artery. I was rushed into surgery where I received 2 stents in my arteries. Stents developed through research funded by the American Heart Association. Those stents saved my life. That's why I'm in front of you today, asking you to join me in supporting the American Heart Association by becoming a monthly donor. Call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help fund the next medical breakthrough. Get the next person trained in CPR, the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. I'm so grateful to the American Heart Association. Their research helped save my life. I can enjoy life with my children, my grandchildren, and my friends. Heart disease is America's #1 killer, and your support now can help save your life or the life of someone you love. Give $19 a month with your credit card, and we'll send you this special t-shirt that you can wear to show that you are helping save lives. Please, listen to your heart. The only reason I'm here today is because I did.
Please call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org. Become a monthly donor during February Heart Month, and your first month's gift will be matched.
Thank you.
We said we'd never give in to a meltdown.
Okay.
And we'd never babysit with a screen. We said we'd never let the toys take over.
Mariella!
Never leave the house looking, well, and never let them out of our sight. Skylar, come here. Cars get hot fast, and kids can be at risk. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock.
Welcome back. The 2026 midterm election season kicked off yesterday with several high-profile primary elections.
That's right. NTD's Dana Monahan has key takeaways.
In Texas, Senator John Cornyn has been pushed into a runoff against Attorney General Ken Paxton in the state's Republican Senate primary, one of yesterday's most closely watched races.
The statewide early results are in, and we did very well, as expected, and we were on to the runoff.
Cornyn is seeking a fifth term, but facing a tough challenge from Paxton, the state attorney general. He hopes to avoid becoming the first Republican senator in Texas history not to be renominated. Although Cornyn has expressed occasional skepticism of President Trump, he has been a reliable ally to the president. Paxton, however, says he is more aligned with Trump's Make America Great Again movement. President Trump didn't endorse either candidate during the primary, but the results may raise pressure on him to take a side. The two will meet in a head-to-head contest on May 26th. On the Democratic side, the Associated Press declared State Representative James Tallarico the winner over Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett in Texas's closely watched Democratic Senate primary. He'll face the winner of the runoff between Cornyn and Paxton. The Tallarico campaign stressed the unprecedented numbers of young voters, independent and Republicans supporting his campaign.
We are not just trying to win an election. We are trying to fundamentally change our politics.
Some voting uncertainty occurred in the contest. A Dallas County judge extended Democratic polling hours to 9 p.m. after early confusion left some voters turned away. Just before the extension ended, the Texas Supreme Court blocked the order, saying voting must proceed as permitted. U.S. Representative Crockett criticized the situation.
But I can tell you now that people have been disenfranchised. The reason that we knew that there were problems is because we were receiving the phone calls and the emails.
In a major Republican primary upset, CNN's Decision Desk projects that Texas State Representative Steve Toth will defeat Congressman Dan Crenshaw in the race for Texas's 2nd Congressional District. Crenshaw, a 4-term congressman and former Navy SEAL, faced criticism from the conservative wing of his party despite his ties to President Trump. His backing the resettlement of Afghani refugees and vote to certify the 2020 election results put him at odds with key MAGA supporters. Senator Ted Cruz endorsed Toth and appeared in a super PAC ad backing the challenger. And the November matchup for the U.S. Senate race in North Carolina is set, with Republican Michael Whatley and Democrat Roy Cooper facing off. Whatley won the GOP primary with about 64% of the vote, while Cooper secured the Democratic nomination. The winner will succeed Senator Thom Tillis, who chose not to run for re-election. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Dallas police arrested a suspicious driver near Ken Paxton's campaign watch party after finding ammunition in his car. An investigation is underway and we'll be keeping you updated. Meanwhile, the U.S. military in South America. U.S. armed forces have joined Ecuador in operations against designated terrorist organizations in that country. U.S. Southern Command calling the mission a strong example of regional partnership in Latin America and the Caribbean to fight narco-terrorism.
Officials say the operations target groups that have long spread terror, violence, and corruption across the hemisphere. Southern Command also commended the Ecuadorian armed forces for their dedication and their commitment to the fight against narco-terrorism. And soon, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Dan Caine, will address the media with an update on operations in Iran. We're going to bring you that live here on NTD.
What has lasted 5,000 years was once almost lost. Now, the world awaits the divine culture's return.
See it at least once in your lifetime. Shen Yun returns to David Koch Theater, March 25th through April 12th. Get your tickets now at shenyun.com.
This land, our America, built on hard work, determination, and grit. Sometimes the days run long, but hope, it never runs out, even when the food does, for America's veterans, working parents, even kids. Because in every corner of every town, even yours, millions of hard-working neighbors are facing a hunger crisis. Many for the very first time. In this land of plenty, affording food shouldn't require second jobs and third shifts or choosing between your groceries and bills. Today, you can help change that. Call or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, less than 63 cents a day, to help every neighbor get the food they urgently need. Because taking care of each other is what makes America strong. We're Feeding America, not just a name, but an action. Working with over 200 local food banks like the ones in your community. And demand is soaring.
You go to the grocery store, you spend $100, and $100 is a new $20 bill.
Even with 2 full-time jobs, it gets hard to make ends meet.
These are tough times, but when we stand together, we become the very best of a strong America. Please call or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org. Just $19 a month can feed a family today. And your first gift can double an impact. Plus, we'll send you this free canvas bag as a reminder of the hope you're delivering.
When it comes down to it, it's about taking care of your family first and the loved ones that you need to provide for.
Because you're not just giving food, you're fueling resilience for people across the nation. You're feeding America. Call or go online today to helpfeedingamerica.org, and your gift can double an impact.
We come from a long line of farmers, and there's a sense of pride, but there's also a significant amount of pressure.
Farmers have to take care of their physical and their mental health, because what's a farm without a farmer?
Watching the sun come up, that's my time. I can have a cup of coffee, and every day is a new opportunity.
That's cool. Your hand's gotten so
Yay!
Don't forget to check in on yourself. Love, your mind.
Welcome to NTD Good Morning's live coverage of Epic Fury.
And here are today's top stories. As Operation Epic Fury enters day 5, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff General Dan Caine are set to give another update on these strikes in Iran.
Iran is expanding its strikes in the Middle East. Qatar says the largest U.S. airbase in the region has been struck. The U.S. military, meanwhile, saying Operation Epic Fury is ahead of the game plan.
20% of the world's oil and gas capacity flows through the Strait of Hormuz, which is now being impeded by the Iran war. What is President Trump doing to counter that? We'll speak with an energy policy analyst.
And midterm primaries kicked off yesterday, producing a pair of upsets with prominent members of Congress projected to lose their seats.
This is NTD Good Morning. Live from our global headquarters in New York City, here are Stephanie Cox and Carrie Dunst.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Today's Wednesday, March 4th. We're continuing with our coverage of Operation Epic Fury, the joint U.S.-Israel operation in Iran that's now entering day 5. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff General Caine will address the media this morning with an update on operations in Iran.
And we plan to bring you that live from the Pentagon here on NTD.
But first, Iran targeting more U.S. assets across the Middle East.
Qatar's defense ministry says an Iranian missile hit the Al Udeid U.S. airbase. There fortunately are no casualties reported.
Al Udeid is the largest U.S. military base in the region. Qatar saying this morning one missile reached the base and another was intercepted.
Saudi Arabian state media reports that the country intercepted and destroyed 9 drones that entered its airspace today. And Fox News has confirmed an Iranian drone struck the CIA station in Riyadh earlier this week. This was part of a drone attack targeting the U.S. Embassy compound.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio also confirming an Iranian drone hit the U.S. consulate in Dubai. Rubio says all personnel are accounted for.
There are also reports that Iran and its proxies struck a U.S. consulate up in northern Iraq. Iran-linked terror groups in the region are taking credit for that attack in Iraq's semi-autonomous Kurdish region.
The Department of War has identified 4 of the 6 American soldiers who died during Operation Epic Fury. The Pentagon yesterday announcing the deaths of Army Reserve Captain Cody Cork, Sergeant First Class Noah Tegens, Sergeant First Class Nicole Amore, and Sergeant Declan Cody. In a statement, the department said they were killed Sunday in Kuwait. The incident under investigation.
The U.S. Army Reserve expressed its condolences to the families. Major General Todd Erskine, the commanding general for the 79th Theater Sustainment Command, saying, "Our nation is kept safe by folks like these." The 2 other soldiers who were killed have not yet been identified.
And American and Israeli forces say they're striking Iranian targets nonstop.
The U.S. military in the region providing an update on Operation Epic Fury. Here's that.
The U.S. military says it has hit nearly 2,000 targets so far as part of Operation Epic Fury. The head of Central Command, Admiral Brad Cooper, says the U.S. is ahead of the game plan.
We have severely degraded Iran's air defenses and destroyed hundreds of Iran's ballistic missiles, launchers, and drones. And in simple terms, we're focused on shooting all the things that can shoot at us.
Admiral Cooper also says the U.S. is going after Iran's Navy.
We are also sinking the Iranian Navy, the entire Navy. Thus far, we've destroyed 17 Iranian ships, including the most operational Iranian submarine that now has a hole in its side. For decades, the Iranian regime has harassed international shipping. Today, there's not a single Iranian ship underway in the Arabian Gulf, Strait of Hormuz, or Gulf of Oman.
According to Cooper, Operation Epic Fury has involved several...
And we're going to cut that story off. The Pentagon giving an update on the joint U.S.-Israel operation in Iran. Let's go there.
Trump, the War Department unleashed this operation early Saturday morning, just 4 days ago, which means we need to remember 2 things. First, we are only 4 days into this. Metrics are shifting, dust is settling, and more forces are arriving. It's very early. And as President Trump has said, we will take all the time we need to make sure that we succeed. Second, we are only 4 days into this, and the results have been incredible, historic, really. Only the United States of America could lead this, only us. But when you add the Israeli Defense Forces, a devastatingly capable force, the combination is sheer destruction for our radical Islamist Iranian adversaries. They are toast, and they know it. Or at least, soon enough, they will know it. And we have only just begun to hunt, dismantle, demoralize, destroy, and defeat their capabilities, just 4 days in. Starting last night and to be completed in a few days, in under a week, the two most powerful air forces in the world will have complete control of Iranian skies, uncontested airspace. I hope all the folks watching understand what uncontested airspace and complete control means. It means we will fly all day, all night, day and night, finding, fixing, and finishing the missiles and defense industrial base of the Iranian military, finding and fixing their leaders and their military leaders, flying over Tehran, flying over Iran, flying over their capital, flying over the IRGC, Iranian leaders looking up and seeing only U.S. and Israeli air power every minute of every day until we decide it's over. And Iran will be able to do nothing about it. B-2s, B-52s, B-1s, Predator drones, fighters, controlling the skies, picking targets. Death and destruction from the sky all day long. We're playing for keeps. Our warfighters have maximum authorities granted personally by the president and yours truly. Our rules of engagement are bold, precise, and designed to unleash American power, not shackle it. This was never meant to be a fair fight, and it is not a fair fight. We are punching them while they're down, which is exactly how it should be. Thus far, Operation Epic Fury has delivered twice the air power of shock and awe of Iraq in 2003, minus Paul Bremer and the nation building. The campaign has 7 times the intensity of Israel's previous operations against Iran during the 12-day war, 7 times. And as President Trump said, more and larger waves are coming. We are just getting started. We are accelerating, not decelerating. Iran's capabilities are evaporating by the hour, while American strength grows fiercer, smarter, and utterly dominant. More bombers and more fighters are arriving just today. And now, with complete control of the skies, we will be using 500-pound, 1,000-pound, and 2,000-pound GPS and laser-guided precision gravity bombs, of which we have a nearly unlimited stockpile. We used more exquisite standoff munitions at the start, but no longer need to. Our stockpiles of those, as well as Patriots, remains extremely strong. The enemy can no longer shoot the volume of missiles they once did, not even close. And the chairman will lay out some of those percentages. So our air defenses and that of our allies have plenty of runway. We can sustain this fight easily for as long as we need to. And as I said yesterday, we set the terms. Now, you may not see much of it because the IRGC shut off the internet to the entirety of the country. They blind their people on purpose, just like they kill their own on purpose. Much was made of the volume of missiles Iran was able to shoot in the first few days. And sadly, as we projected, a few got through and killed 6 of our best, who will hopefully arrive home soon. We will avenge them, no doubt. But I liken Iran's predicament to a football team who scripted the first 20 plays of a game. The team knew what plays to run because their first few drives were scripted. But now that the game has started and the blitz is on, they don't know what plays to call, let alone how to get in the huddle and call those plays. Iran's senior leaders are dead. The so-called governing council that might have selected a successor, dead, missing, or cowering in bunkers, too terrified to even occupy the same room. Senior generals, mid-level officers, enlisted ranks, they can't talk or communicate, let alone mount a coordinated and sustained offensive. That's not great for morale. The Iranian Air Force is no more, built for 1996, destroyed in 2026. The Iranian Navy rests at the bottom of the Persian Gulf. Combat ineffective, decimated, destroyed, defeated, pick your adjective. In fact, last night, we sunk their prize ship, the Soleimani. Looks like POTUS got him twice. Their Navy, not a factor. Pick your adjective, it is no more. In fact, yesterday, in the Indian Ocean, and we'll play it on the screen there, an American submarine sunk an Iranian warship that thought it was safe in international waters. Instead, it was sunk by a torpedo. Quiet death. The first sinking of an enemy ship by a torpedo since World War II. Like in that war, back when we were still the War Department, we are fighting to win. Also, yesterday, the leader of the unit who attempted to assassinate President Trump has been hunted down and killed. Iran tried to kill President Trump, and President Trump got the last laugh. Now, this is not a mission accomplished situation. This is simply a reality check. The combination of U.S. and Israeli intelligence and combat power will control Iran, and will control it soon. Sure, Iran will still be able to shoot some missiles and still be able to launch one-way attack drones at civilian targets, and their proxies will attempt to attack our embassies, bases, and soft targets. They are terrorists, after all, and they need to target civilians because they can't fight toe-to-toe. But we will find them, and we will kill them. This is what the fake news misses. We've taken control of Iran's airspace and waterways without boots on the ground. We control their fate. But when a few drones get through or tragic things happen, it's front page news. I get it. The press only wants to make the president look bad, but try for once to report the reality. The terms of this war will be set by us at every step. As I said Monday, the mission is laser focused. Obliterate Iran's missiles and drones and facilities that produce them, annihilate its navy and critical security infrastructure, and sever their pathway to nuclear weapons. Iran will never possess a nuclear bomb, not on our watch, not ever. And this is why President Trump's moral clarity on Iran today is so vital. Unlike the past, where vague red lines and endless negotiations let Iran fund terror and inch ever so slightly toward a bomb, this president sees the threat plainly and acts decisively. No more half measures, especially when Iran is at its weakest. No more letting Tehran play for time while our people pay the price. His leadership ensures that we finish what we start and that we protect our warfighters by crushing the enemy before they can strike again. Our offensive operations, refined through months of relentless preparation, are unstoppable. And our defensive efforts are unprecedented. We have from the start put the protection of our troops ahead of everything else. Before we very publicly built up offensive combat power, we quietly ensured that our defensive posture and power was in place. And as we built up offensive combat power, we moved the vast majority of American troops, over 90% of Americans that were on our bases, what we say off the X, out of the range of Iranian fire. Our defensive shield is equally formidable, the most sophisticated air and missile defense network ever fielded. Thousands of Iranian missiles and drones have been intercepted and vaporized. Tens of thousands of American and allied lives protected. We have pushed every counter-UAS system possible forward, sparing no expense or capability. And like I said, this does not mean we can stop everything, but we ensured that the maximum possible defense and maximum possible force protection was set up before we went on offense. In closing, as President Trump told German Chancellor Merz yesterday, Iran negotiated in bad faith, stalling, scheming, and preparing to strike. and we acted decisively to defend our people, our interests, and our allies. President Trump took bold action, putting America first, the kind of bold action that the American people elected him to execute. To our steadfast partner, Israel, your mission is being executed with unmatched skill and iron determination. Fighting shoulder to shoulder with such a capable ally is a true force multiplier and a breath of fresh air. We salute your courage and your contribution. 4 days in, we have only just begun to fight. America fights to win, and in Operation Epic Fury, we are. May God's providence cover and protect our troops always. And with that, I turn it over to the chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm here today to provide the American people and those of you in this room an update on Operation Epic Fury. First, it's with profound sadness and gratitude that I share the names of 4 of our 6 fallen heroes, all from the 103rd Sustainment Command, U.S. Army Reserves out of Des Moines, Iowa. Captain Cody Cork, Sergeant First Class Noah Tegens, Sergeant First Class Nicole Amore, and Sergeant Declan Cody. To the families of our fallen, we grieve with you today, and we look forward to welcoming your family members home at Dover in the coming days. Out of respect for the other families, we'll withhold the release of their names until next of kin notification is complete. And either myself or Admiral Cooper will release those names as soon as we can ensure that all of those families have been properly notified. To our Gold Star families, to our wounded warriors and their loved ones, we will never forget your sacrifice. Our nation stands with you, and we are eternally grateful for your courage, your resiliency, your devotion to this mission and to our nation. As the Secretary said, we're 4 days in, 103 hours into this campaign. The operation was again launched with clear military objectives designed to dismantle Iran's ability to project power outside of its borders, both today and in the future. First, we are targeting and eliminating Iran's ballistic missile systems to prevent them from threatening the U.S. Forces, partners, and interests in the region. Second, we are destroying the Iranian Navy, degrading its capacity, capability, and ability to conduct operations, not just in the Central Command AOR, but as the Secretary showed in the video, around the world. Third, we're ensuring Iran cannot rapidly rebuild or reconstitute its combat capability or combat power, and those phases will begin as the campaign continues. As of this morning, U.S. Central Command is making steady progress. Iran's theater ballistic missile shots fired are down 86% from the first day of fighting, with a 23% decrease just in the last 24 hours. And their one-way attack drone shots are down 73% from the opening days. This progress has allowed CENTCOM to establish localized air superiority across the southern flank of the Iranian coast and penetrate their defenses with overwhelming precision and firepower. We will now begin to expand inland, striking progressively deeper into Iranian territory and creating additional freedom of maneuver for U.S. forces. Let me explain a little bit about how we're thinking about staying ahead of the enemy. First, over the past several weeks, Admiral Cooper and the CENTCOM team have refined their operational approach to the region. Their planners identified key centers of gravity that would allow Iran to project power outside of its borders. They thought about how to isolate critical vulnerabilities and determined where, with precision, the greatest strategic effect could be achieved. As a result of this, CENTCOM is now shifting in day 4 already from large deliberate strike packages using standoff munitions at range outside an enemy's ability to shoot at us, now into stand-in precision strikes overhead Iran. As the Secretary said, this is a point of munitions transition from standoff munitions to stand-in munitions like Joint Direct Attack munitions, which are GPS-aided free-fall weapons, and other things like Hellfires, etc. This will allow the joint force to deliver significantly increased precision effects on the target. The throttle is coming up, as the Secretary said, as opposed to ramping down. This will allow us to maintain consistent pressure on the adversary over the coming days, disrupt their launch timelines, and impose cost every day around the clock. I know there have been a lot of questions about munitions. We have sufficient precision munitions for the task at hand, both on the offense and defense. But I want to tell you, teammates, as a matter of practice, I don't want to be talking about quantities. And I know there's been a great debate about that, and I appreciate the interest, but just know that we consider that an operational security matter. Let me flip to the map here. Hopefully I don't kill anybody with a laser pointer. As I mentioned earlier, and for you with the camera right there, my friend, I hope I don't ricochet off and hurt you. Over the initial days, the U.S. Joint Forces continued to attack and attrit ballistic missile capabilities as well as integrated air defense capabilities along the southern axis. Along the northern axis, Israel and the Israeli Air Force has predominantly been working integrated air defense targets along the northern flank, as well as medium-range ballistic missile capability as well. From the sea, the USS Ford has continued to project combat power here, as well as the bomber pulses that we talked about in the opening days of this briefing. Along the southern axis, the USS Abraham Lincoln Strike Group has continued to provide pressure from the sea along the southeastern side of the coast and has been attriting naval capability all along the strait and up into the Arabian Gulf at a size and scale sufficiently to address the targets required. To date, we've hit over 2,000 targets, as Admiral Cooper said in his video last night. We've destroyed more than 20 Iranian naval vessels, including, in addition to the frigate outside of the area, one submarine, and effectively neutralized at this point in time Iran's major naval presence in theater out there. As the Secretary showed the video, for the first time since 1945, a United States Navy fast attack submarine has sunk an enemy combatant ship using a single Mark 48 torpedo to achieve immediate effect, sending the warship to the bottom of the sea. I want to remind everybody that this is an incredible demonstration of America's global reach. To hunt, find, and kill an out-of-area deployer is something that only the United States can do at this type of scale. Over the next 24 to 48 hours, CENTCOM will continue to strike infrastructure and naval capability, and we'll continue to assess our progress against the military objectives. It does take time for us to collect that information and to assess en route. Much of our intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance capability is currently hunting and killing ballistic missile launchers and one-way attack capability. We're precise in that assessment, and we call balls and strikes in that assessment. We take that matter seriously. Iran, on the other hand, has been indiscriminate and more imprecise in their attacks. They fired more than 500 ballistic missiles and more than 2,000 drones, striking innocent civilian targets throughout the region. Our partners are answering the call to defend themselves right alongside us. Jordan, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, and Kuwait are all defending their people with their own combat capability, with precision and restraint. Jordanian air defense crews recently intercepted a cluster of Iranian one-way attack drones headed to Amman. Bahrain's air defense forces shot down an inbound drone approaching Manama's maritime infrastructure, protecting both their population and critical shipping lanes. Saudi Patriot batteries stopped a salvo of ballistic missiles aimed at energy facilities near Dhahran. The UAE neutralized multiple drones targeting Abu Dhabi's industrial zone, demonstrating speed and precision. And Qatari fighters for the first time have shot down 2 Iranian bombers that were en route to their location. Together, these nations are helping to defend themselves and project power as required against the enemy. We're 100 hours in. It's still very early, as the Secretary said, but the balance is shifting. We've always got to remember that these operations are complex, dangerous, and far from over. Our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Guardians, and Coast Guardsmen remain in harm's way, and we must be clear-eyed that the risk is still high. This is combat. Let us never forget this. As we continue, I ask that we hold all of our deployed teammates in our thoughts, those standing the watch, flying the sorties, sustaining the fight, and carrying our nation's burden. And I'll stop where I started, and that's remembering our 6 fallen who will return home as soon as possible. I remain humbled, grateful, inspired by every day the valor and professionalism of our joint force. They are quiet professionals through and through, out there doing America's work through the day and through the darkness. And with that, I'll take your questions along with the Secretary.
Go ahead.
What do you assess the enemy's control and command status is right now? And can you broadly describe our decisive point in this operation?
Oh, I won't describe the decisive point in the operation because that would tell the bad guys what it was.
That's a good question, though.
I appreciate the question. There are C2 structures in a bad way. Admiral Cooper's been continuing to pressure C2 at the IRGC C2 and other military elements, and will continue to do so. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Secretary Hegseth. Mary Margaret with the Daily Wire. Couple questions for you and then one for General Caine. Can you tell us more about how we took out the leader who was the leader of the group that was trying to assassinate President Trump? And then Turkey's defense ministry says NATO air defense systems intercepted an Iranian ballistic missile headed towards Turkish airspace. Could this trigger NATO's Article 5, and was it the U.S. who shot it down?
On the first question, we've known for a long time that Iran had intentions on trying to kill President Trump and or other U.S. Officials. And while that was not the focus of the effort by any stretch of the imagination, in fact, never raised by the president or anybody else, I ensured and others ensured that those who were responsible for that were eventually part of the target list. It wasn't the beginning of the effort. We were focused on missiles and launchers, and that's the focus. But ultimately, if we had the opportunity to get at those who are trying to get at Americans specifically, we would. And so we eventually had the opportunity to do that from the air. And then on the matter with Turkey, I'll have to get back to you on exactly what the intercept looked like at that. We're aware of that particular engagement, although no sense that it would trigger anything like Article 5. No. Tie right there. You got a tie on.
Yeah. Thank you. Tom Bateman with the BBC. Can you give us an update on what the administration knows, what you know now about the reported strike on a girls' school in southern Iran on Saturday?
All I can say is that we're investigating that. We, of course, never target civilian targets, but we're taking a look and investigating that. Red tie in front.
Just on the basis that with the information you would have, your reconnaissance abilities, ability to gather information, I mean, it's several days on now. So is there any clarity on whose munition this was?
We're investigating it. Thank you.
Secretary, so there are reports that the administration is considering arming Iranian Kurdish groups. So could you please clarify that whether any such plan has been authorized and whether Congress or regional partners has been notified and consulted?
All I would say is none of our objectives are premised on the support or the arming of any particular force. So what other entities may be doing, we're aware of, but our objectives aren't centered on that. Green, right there.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Secretary. Mike Lynn, Washington Times. Can you talk a little bit about the deconfliction process that's going on? You have two parallel operations, Epic Fury and Roaring Lion. How are you making sure they're not interfering with each other?
Sure, I'm happy to take that. Thank you for the question. We have liaison officers on both sides. There are U.S. CENTCOM teammates out in Israel, and there are Israeli Defense Force teammates at the relevant command and control nodes within the U.S. CENTCOM enterprise. Routinely, Admiral Cooper is talking to the IDF Chief of Defense, and I will occasionally speak to him through the arc of this. I've spoken to him a few times already. That allows us to coordinate, integrate, and synchronize activities while maintaining separate efforts.
And when I said a breath of fresh air, I really meant it. Usually it's us with some ancillary benefits from allies who are maybe willing but not as capable. When you have both the will and the capability of an ally that can really bring things to bear, we take certain targets, they take certain targets, and when you coordinate it, it has incredible effects. Right here.
Secretary Hegseth, with respect to House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries' statement that the Iran mission will end in failure, what kind of message does that send to our enemies, and what does it do to the motivation of our troops?
Well, I've been through that movie before with the Democrats rooting against the country. Our generation saw that in our battlefields. I think it's pretty unprecedented and unfortunate that it would occur 4 days in to an operation where, as the chairman laid out, America's best are operating in an incredibly challenging environment where they're having incredible success, but they're meeting a determined adversary. And he's been privy to briefs that we've provided. He knows how effective this has been. He's being disingenuous, which we're used to. Right here.
Thank you for taking my question. Heather Mullins, Lindell TV. One of the questions I have is just really regarding the intelligence that indicated that this was something the U.S. had to get involved with at the time that you guys did. We had Operation Midnight Hammer back in June. We obliterated their nuclear facilities. What was the intelligence that suggested that somehow they became a threat once again that required us to get involved with Operation Epic Fury?
I appreciate the question. The evidence in front of us since the 12-day war was that Iran had no intention of actually negotiating a nuclear deal that truly meant they did not have a pathway to the nuclear bomb. And they had a moment. Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff, two of the best negotiators in the world, poured into that negotiation, giving them every single possible opportunity to release that ambition. And they didn't. And the intelligence that we saw they didn't intend to do it in good faith, that they had the intentions eventually to get to a place where they could have a conventional shield to block their nuclear capabilities, as I talked about yesterday. So I would separate the what from the when a little bit. The what is they've been killing Americans for 47 years. They have thousands of missiles pointed at us. They have ongoing nuclear ambitions, and they're at the weakest they've ever been. So the when became in a particular, hey, what makes the most sense to do this to ensure that the narrow objectives we have of ensuring they never have a nuclear weapon have a maximum effect? Yes, right here.
Thank you, Secretary Hegseth. I had two questions. First, what is your message to Iran's allies, namely Russia and China, who have called for an immediate end to hostilities?
I don't have a message for them, and they're not really a factor here. And our issue is not with them. It's with the nuclear ambitions of Iran.
Absolutely. And are any so-called fully autonomous weapons or other AI tools being used in Operation Epic Fury?
We've got a lot of autonomous systems or systems that drones and others incorporated with smart AI aspects to them, but a lot of which I can't talk about here. Yeah. Yellow, right there. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. As you know, China is accusing the United States of invading in Iran, a sovereign nation, and North Korea, which cooperate with Iran on nuclear development, has declared its commitment to protecting Iran. What is the United States' strategic response to this? And I have a second one. How many allies join with the United States to fighting against Iran? Do you have any numbers?
Well, I think what you're seeing right now is a response in the region to the belligerence of Iran and the willingness of them to target civilian airports, civilian hotels, civilian locations, civilian oil infrastructure of their Gulf neighbors who would have preferred not to be in conflict, didn't want to, but now realize that this is something that has to be dealt with. So whether it's UAE or Qatar or Bahrain or Kuwait or Saudi, on different levels, they're reaching out to us, whether they're going on offense, which they are, whether they're giving us additional access basing and overflight. We're working very closely and collaborating with them. Also on air defenses. The air defense capabilities of those countries are significant, and when combined with ours and we coordinate, it brings simplicity to the shot doctrine, so we make sure we're using less munitions but being more effective with what we shoot at. And as it pertains to other countries, I'll sort of give the same question. They don't really bear on the case of Iran. We're going to deal with Iran's nuclear ambitions, and that'll send plenty of signals in the process. Right there. Purple.
Are you going to help get Americans out of the region? The military going to help? Secretary. I have two questions. One question for you and the other question for Mr. Chairman. You ruled out that you are not engaging with the Kurdish forces, Iranian Kurdish forces, to incursion from the Kurdistan region to Iran. But now, and today, Iranian said that under threatening the Kurdistan region, they said clearly if there is any incursion from the Kurdistan region, they will attack all the Kurdistan region and go war with the Kurdistan region. What's your comment on that? And a question for Mr. Chairman, given comments that the U.S. forces might be deployed if necessary, under what specific conditions would you determine that deploying U.S. boots on the ground is necessary, and how would such a decision support and advance your stated strategic goals?
Well, I'm not going to comment on U.S. boots on the ground. I think that's a question for policymakers, and I don't make policy. I execute policy. I will say on the question in the back corner about helping Americans get out, first, it's a great opportunity to encourage everybody in the region to go to the State Department and register. Secretary Rubio's been trying to get that word out, and I'd ask you to help us with that, to have folks register. We've also opened up space available seats as C-17s and other airplanes come in to try to help folks get out. But that's really a State Department matter. But to answer your question, that's what we've been doing.
Absolutely. Last question right here.
Secretary Hegseth, thank you. Reagan Reese with the Daily Caller. You touched on this in your opening remarks, but I'm hoping you could expand on it a bit. It's been reported that Iran might be trying to outlast our ability to intercept their missiles. It sounds like you guys are saying they don't have the ability to do so. Is that the case? Can they outlast us in their ability to do that?
Iran cannot outlast us. We're going to ensure through violence of action and our offensive capabilities and our defensive capabilities, as I said, that we set the tone and the tempo of this fight. That's why stories and speculation about different things that try to make it look like we're limited in what we can do. The only limits we have in this is President Trump's desire to achieve specific effects on behalf of the American people. And that's why we don't talk about, you can say 4 weeks, but it could be 6, it could be 8, it could be 3. Ultimately, we set the pace and the tempo. The enemy is off balance, and we're going to keep them off balance. And we know their ability to shoot versus our ability to defend. That difference gets wider and wider every day. Our defense gets better. Their offense capabilities diminish. As we are going into ammunitions that we, as we said, have tens of thousands of and can drop unlimited supplies on with even more effects than the standoff munitions we have now, which is why when we say the throttle's going up, the throttle's going up, and it's going to stay on high. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Secretary of War Pete Hegseth there, and General Dan Caine with updates on Operation Epic Fury. As you heard, the throttle is going up. The Secretary declaring complete control of the skies there over Iran.
That's right, as well as the seas, saying that for the first time since World War II, a U.S. submarine took out a warship in the open seas. He said that now 86% down in terms of Iran's ability to fire missiles. General Caine described it as the 103rd hour of the campaign, so clearly looking at things at a very finite level of granularity. And they said that they've iterated their strike packages. They started with these overwhelmingly large ones, and now they're moving to more precision strike targets. And then they also said that all of the Gulf countries are now defending their own interests. They had not initially joined any type of offensive strikes, but since Iran did fire at them, they're taking evasive actions. He described Qatar actually having shot down an Iranian warplane that was trying to bomb over in Qatar. So a lot from that press conference. We'll be summarizing and giving you more of that. But right now, what we're looking at is a live shot over Beirut. That's where Israel is taking on Hezbollah. You can see the smoke rising there, and as well partnering with the Lebanese government, who has said that they're waving off any cooperation there with Hezbollah, speaking out against them. And 20% of the world's oil and gas flows through the Strait of Hormuz, which analysts fear could be impeded by the Iran war.
What is President Trump doing to counter it? We'll be speaking with an energy policy analyst and advisor after this break.
Discover the ancient secret to vitality and longevity with Puritane Black Ginseng. Crafted from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng, each root is carefully nurtured for over 2,260 days, undergoing a traditional 9-round handcrafted process of steaming and drying to unlock full potency and absorption. Experience pure natural energy with Puritane Black Ginseng. Order now at Puritane.com.
There's cultures that have been lost, but this culture hasn't been. The artist is showing us our sense of who we are, where we came from. You look at his hat. His hat is knitted probably by a man, because a man traditionally knitted the hats. That hat tells you the story of who this person is, what his place in the culture is, the animals around him. Everything's all contained in the messages in the hat. And the tool that he's carrying over his shoulder. This is a centuries-old tool that has been able to rework the mountains. Those traditions are invaluable, and if we don't honor those traditions, then we're rootless. The artist is showing us the value of maintaining our culture and respecting our culture.
And welcome back to NTD Good Morning special coverage of Operation Epic Fury. We're now joined by Rebecca Grant, Vice President of the Lexington Institute and a national security analyst, as well as David Blackmon, energy policy analyst and advisor and senior contributor with Forbes. Thank you both for joining us. Rebecca, I'd like to jump in with you and get your reactions to the presser we just saw from the Pentagon.
What a great report from General Caine, and we are so fortunate to have a combat experienced airman like him leading this. He tells us the campaign is going very well and they've got air superiority established and all the southern part of Iran open. Now comes the decisive phase, and it's going to take a little while. We'll see Air Force fighters, Navy fighters, and Air Force bombers in there with the standard range of munitions, satellite-guided JDAMs, laser-guided bombs. We have plenty of stocks of those, and they will be targeting all the remaining Iranian military capability. Same time, the dynamic hunt for Iran's missile launchers continues, and the USS Abraham Lincoln is taking care of and eliminating Iran's Navy to the point that no Iranian ship is moving on the water at this point. Fantastic results so far. Still a combat zone, still playing defense, but an amazing start.
Yeah, and speaking about playing defense, obviously the Iranian regime is trying two things. Obviously, anything with civilians, they're trying to cause harm, but they're also trying to disrupt energy infrastructure. And of course, the Strait of Hormuz being so key to the world's energy supply. So, David, at a high level, I'd like you just to break down what's happening with Iran's attempts, specifically as well with the insurer Lloyd's pulling out, shooting the cost of energy up. Where are we in terms of the effect on the global supply of energy?
Well, at the moment, we're at a stalemate. Iran really didn't shut down the strait in any real sense other than a threat to blow ships out of the water if they tried to transit it. Apparently, they did hit a tanker, or actually a container ship this morning that was empty, didn't have any cargo on it, and so that just only reinforces the threat. Lloyd's and the other insurers in the cartel based in London that has kind of a monopoly on insuring these cargoes globally made the decision that it didn't want to take the risk and is demanding much higher war premiums now for the shippers to bear the cost of transiting the strait. The president yesterday ordered the U.S. government to find a way to offer indemnity on those cargoes and in competition with the cartel based in London. And so, you know, what this points up is the need to diversify sources for ensuring these cargoes going forward. We have this cartel of insurance companies based in London. In the UK, which unfortunately has taken this pretty decided anti-US turn related to this conflict. And that doesn't appear to be a sustainable situation going forward, especially if there's going to be any sort of an enduring conflict in the Middle East.
And of course, Lloyd's being a private company, and then the UK's government's approach, potentially two separate things. But to turn to you, Rebecca, what have been the U.S. partners' response? Spain taking a very different approach than perhaps France. David sharing the UK not that supportive. What has been your view of all of the various countries' responses who have any related interest in the area?
Well, leaving Spain aside for the moment, and shame on them because, you know, we have some pretty important destroyers that work out of there. But the UK, it took them a minute, but they're coming around. Their number 12 Squadron in Qatar has bagged some drones. We've seen an RAF F-35 stealth fighter engaging over Jordanian airspace. France has decided to send their aircraft carrier, Charles de Gaulle. Important in that air wing is she carries some carrier-based radar planes, which can be very effective. We need quite a bit of air power for that anti-drone defense. But mainly, I just have to give a shout out to the Gulf states. They have done an incredible job defending themselves and each other. The UAE says 174 Iranian ballistic missiles tracked coming towards the UAE, 161 intercepted. Qatar's also released some big numbers about Iranian ballistic missiles. You know, Iran has done this attack from basically Turkey all the way down to Oman. We saw the Saudis defend their infrastructure as well with Patriots, their energy infrastructure. So the Gulf states do not like to brag about their military capabilities, but they've been superb and they've been in there from the start. It really sends, I think, a powerful message to the world that the Iranian regime is so despised, and it's great to see the Gulf states coming together.
Yeah, you bring up a really interesting point. Our guest in the last hour was talking about how the Abraham Accords and now to the Board of Peace has really flipped the script on those countries and their support for Israel, and now clearly in the fight here, maybe not by their own choosing, but certainly drawn in to the fight and now defending their own interests against the Iranian threat. To that point, David, I want to come back to you on energy because we heard Secretary Hegseth described that Hakeem Jeffries has been in private updates from the Pentagon on the status of the war, calling his view that we would not be successful as disingenuous based on the classified information that he has. But the other element to the political aspect of this is the cost of energy. I'm seeing, where I live in Connecticut, a slight maybe 10 or 20% bump in the cost at the pump, but still significantly down from when Trump took office. So I want to get a sense of where you see macro energy prices going. Trump's saying that ultimately he thinks they will go down after the successful operation, but what's the road to get there? Do you see energy prices continuing to go up?
Well, it just depends on how successful and how long this operation lasts. Right now, it's obviously been very successful. And hopefully, the 4-week time frame President Trump laid out a couple of days ago remains, the duration of it. As long as you can get oil flowing back through the Strait of Hormuz, we're not going to see a big spike in oil prices. Things have settled down today in trading today. In fact, right before we came on, the direction turned negative on crude prices, both the Brent price and the WTI price. So that's a good sign that traders are not spooked too much over this. There's a lot of floating storage out on the open water. Most countries have pretty healthy storage levels in their national storage systems. And so there's a lot of excess capacity in the system that can continue to supply countries' basic needs for several weeks, most likely. And so all that's having a dampening effect on the spike in oil prices. And as long as we can get the Strait of Hormuz back open, that's the key choke point to everything. As long as the U.S. government can find a way to get that choke point back open here in the next week or so, we're not going to see a huge spike in either crude prices or gasoline prices at the pump.
And just to stay with you for a moment, David, the status of the Strait of Hormuz is that it is technically unimpeded. So what is the status of flow in and out of the strait?
Well, right now it's almost at a standstill because companies don't have insurance for their cargoes. And, that's a completely rational decision by the shipping companies. If you don't want to try to transit the strait in the face of this threat from Iran, until you feel certain either one, that the threat has been rescinded, or they're just not capable of hitting your cargoes unless they're insured. And so this move by the president to have the U.S. government offer to indemnify those cargoes and even escort them through the strait with U.S. naval vessels is a move to try to provide them some comfort level to begin moving traffic again. But you're correct. I mean, it's technically open, but they just don't want to take that business risk, and that's an entirely rational decision.
Understood. And with that, Rebecca, we understand that some of the energy infrastructure has been either hit or it's been shut down, maybe out of a defensive posture around the Gulf states. I want to get your sense on the reduction in the Iranians' capacity to fire missiles. I believe the general said down 86%. Obviously, once less projectiles are coming out of Iran, that signals potentially the turning point, but also the turning point on the ground. And one of our earlier interviews described that there potentially are some Kurdish militias looking to move in on the ground. So how do we ultimately flip toward some sort of opportunity toward regime change?
Well, the military campaign comes first, and as Secretary Hegseth said, maybe that's 3 weeks, maybe that's 8 weeks, but you hit the nail on the head. Iran's missile launches are down by 86%, the one-way attack drones down by 73%, and that is not going to recover. Now, it's still a combat zone. You will never completely 100% guarantee you suppress that threat, but the level of threat has gone down a lot. And honestly, as scary as it is, the actual physical level of damage caused by Iran, even with the missiles they have shot, is honestly pretty minimal. I mean, we hate to see it. I especially hate to see the one that hit in Kuwait and the loss of life. But as far as the infrastructure along the Gulf states there, I mean, I don't like it, but it's not. It is not militarily significant, and it's going to go down. We are going to get to a point where we have a period of time where we're not seeing these missiles being launched. And remember, every time one gets launched, we now have aircraft hunting for that transporter erector launcher and taking out the personnel and the ability to launch more. It's going to go down. It's going to get safer. And I think, especially as it relates to the Strait of Hormuz, remember, the U.S. Navy is there. I understand the shippers have to make a decision and they can't reschedule quickly, but I think we're going to see a much, much quieter area along the coast and much fewer attacks coming out of Iran.
And Rebecca, you had mentioned that once a rocket launcher is activated, then U.S. and or Israel, through their technology, is able to then pinpoint that spot and take it out. How mobile and nimble are these rocket launchers? Can you just load one off the back of a pickup? What is the U.S. and Israel actually hunting for through their various systems to try to neutralize these threats?
Well, that's basically right. They're basically on a heavy truck, and they like to shoot and scoot, as they say. But because of the heat signature and the radar signature, our fighters have incredible long-range sensors and a lot of overhead sensors. So when an Iranian comes up and launches that off, they're just making themselves a big, bright target. And we've seen some of the gun camera footage of those types of targets being taken out. That's going to mean there are fewer and fewer of them. It's still a hunt, as the chairman said. They're still hunting for those targets, but the advantage is very much with the hunter. That's the U.S. and Israel.
And David, just as we finish up in our last 30 seconds or so, what are you looking for as milestones or KPIs as to what the energy markets will be doing over these next, days and weeks?
Well, it all just has to do with, the diminution of Iran's ability to threaten the shipping, really. Rebecca made a great point. The visuals on these damages to infrastructure always look a lot worse than they probably are, because anytime you have any kind of a fire in a refinery or any other kind of oil processing facility, you're going to have a ton of black smoke, regardless of how major or minimal the damage is. And the drone hit on the Saudi refinery 2 days ago created an immense amount of black smoke, but very little real damage. And so this is all very recoverable right now, and without a lot of effort. And the situation, the key to it all always has been keeping that Strait of Hormuz open to shipping traffic. I really am optimistic it's going to be restored pretty quickly, and that we're not going to see some big blowout in crude prices that really do damage to the global economy.
Well, we definitely appreciate you both sharing your expertise with us. David Blackmon, Rebecca Grant, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that is all we have time for today. But if you have any feedback on the show, or there's an angle or a story that you would like us to cover, please send us an email at goodmorning@ntd.com. We'd love your feedback.
And for round-the-clock original news coverage, you can always watch us live at ntd.com/live or download our NTD app. I'm Stephanie Cox.
I'm Carrie Duns. Thanks for joining.
Food. It fuels our bodies, nourishes our spirits, and brings us together. Because we all need nutritious food to thrive.
Food gives me energy and it also helps me focus.
But not everyone knows where their next meal is coming from. And 1 in 7 people in America face hunger. It's tougher than ever for too many of us. But the simple truth is, ending hunger is possible, and it starts with you. Call or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, to help families in your community facing hunger. Feeding America works from coast to coast with partner food banks, food pantries, and meal programs. Your monthly gift delivers food where it's needed most, puts fresh food on the table, and helps kids have healthy meals all year round, even when school is out.